Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alpstead, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst, Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alpstead, here with Keith Myers. Keith, happy, what is it today? Thursday. Thursday to you. Good morning. We're recording in the morning. We're have a great show today. We're going to do 5 offensive breakout players for 2021 on the Seahawks roster. Going to give it our best go. So we've each brought our own lists. And how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I survived the epic heat wave up here, where it was difficult to tell the difference between the temperature up here in the Pacific Northwest and you down in the desert.
Wow.
There were 3 days there that were, they were trying to kill us. They really were.
And you had the added humidity that we just do not have here. Mm-hmm. You know, on the days that it was really hot here like that, we had humidity close to 10%, and you had it close to 25 or 30%.
It was up in the Portland area. It was up in the 40s.
Yeah, that's that's a tough go.
And then in Seattle, because of the sound, it depends on where you were. If you were, like down on the waterfront, it was like 40, 45. But if you were back away a little bit, then it dropped down into the high 20s. But it was.
No matter where you are, even here in Phoenix. After you get over 110, it's stupid hot. It just doesn't matter, like if it's dry or heavy or whatever. It's very uncomfortable, and people can get severely dehydrated and injured, and it can cause lots of medical concerns. So I'm glad everybody made it through that, and now it's definitely more tolerable. It's funny, it's tolerable for here as well. I think the high temperature yesterday was 102, and this time of the year, anything over or below 105, man, I'm taking it. I'm out early in the morning. I'm enjoying my coffee on the patio, and it's great. And you can even barbecue in the afternoon. I have a west-facing lot, and so I get sunsets, right? That's great. In the summer, though, it's brutal to like even barbecue in the late afternoons, because there's no hiding from that sort of direct light, and it's awful. But the last couple of days have been good. So here we are. We're recording. I got a new background. I got some bookshelves. I found a good bookshelf deal on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody actually in my neighborhood, and so that was awesome that I was able to get these and finally put up all the stuff that I've just kind of have had in miscellaneous different places and so forth, and displayed it a little bit. So it looks a little chaotic and cluttered. I thought I'd give this a try, and so there.
I have the same old background of doors and a closet door. Yeah.
But that might be changing.
That's temporary, because I'll be moving into a new house with a new office, one that I'll actually have a real background, and
So we're upgrading.
I know we are.
Yeah, the show is elevating.
Yeah, we're only, what is it? 3 years in, 4 years in?
This is our fifth year.
73 years of
That's what it seems like, right?
Sometimes it kind of does.
All right, come on. So let's remind folks about something really cool coming up. Is that we are going to be appearing live at Ozzy's Tavern in downtown Seattle on July 19th to do a live show partnered with Dan Viens from the Emerald City Sportscast. And we're doing a happy hour show. So the full 3 hours from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're going to be there in person. Folks are invited down to come in person and join us, submit some questions that we'll have forms for at the door. You can ask your questions, and we'll have a little segment that we go through some of those. There's going to be a raffle where you'll be able to, you don't have to pay for the raffle. You just get a ticket, and there's going to be 2 preseason Seahawks games that we're going to give away, tickets.
2 tickets.
And then there'll be 5 Fanatics gift cards worth $50 each that we are giving away. There'll probably be some other little perks and and trinkets along the way as well.
Drink specials.
And the Aussies is putting together a really nice drink special and food specials for this occasion. And it's just going to be really nice. We have a special guest locked in. Corbin Smith from Seahawks Maven, Sports Illustrated Seahawks Maven, is going to join us. And we're working on a few other guests as well. So this is really just an amazing, fun thing that we're going to be able to do. It's the Seahawks training camp kickoff show. And so we're just very excited. We hope that those that do live locally can come down and join us. That would just be fantastic to have a lot of folks there really kind of getting excited about the Seahawks getting into training camp the following week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an absolute blast, and I hope people come down and join us. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. So, and look on Twitter for the information. Look on the website. I've got a little article that I put together with the graphic announcing the show and the times and the date and the location on Twitter. Following either Keith or myself or the show on Twitter. We've also put that information out there as well, and it will continue to going forward. Let's talk about a really bummer situation that's developing, like as we speak and record, with a player that I've talked about as being a hopeful candidate to make the roster, and now he was waived yesterday, and it's looking like serious trouble.
Yeah. So former Florida State, was it Florida State or Florida? I don't know, state of Florida. Wide receiver Tremont Terry, who has tremendous talent, and one of the guys that everyone was kind of shocked he went undrafted. There's been a lot of reports as to why that didn't always show him in the best light. But he's a guy with tremendous talent. So we were like, okay, if he's got his head on straight and has figured some things out, he could be a guy that, makes this roster and makes a big impact. And then all of a sudden yesterday, he gets waived. And everyone's kind of like, that's interesting. That was unexpected given his talent and everything. But then today, the news came out as to why he has been indicted for murder.
It's just devastating.
There are 11 guys that were indicted for murder. He was one of them. Got apparently shots fired into a crowd, and somebody died.
This is in 2018.
Yeah. So
reportedly.
Yep. So this was, a few years ago, but it's taken, this long for all of this stuff to come out and reach a point of charges. And so,
the interesting thing, Keith, was that he was released yesterday, and this report came out today.
Mm-hmm.
And so the team was given a heads up either by Terry that this was coming, or the district attorney or his agent. Somebody told the team so that they could act before this hit the wire.
Yeah. So the reports that I'm reading said that they released him after he was indicted, but he was released before the indictment became public.
Okay.
So that was why, but it's not like they learned about it through the media and the reports that came out to everybody. They knew about it ahead of time. They released him ahead of time, but it was for this reason.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Bummer of a story.
Bummer. Yeah, it is. It is a bummer.
But there are tons of guys who have that talent that just find ways to,
self-destruct
things up and self-destruct and become, not someone I'm sure they're proud of being, but from his point of view, hopefully this blows over and he's not involved and it's just that. But there was a reason he went undrafted. No one was willing.
There were character concerns.
It was all character, and I'm sure this incident had a lot to do with it. And then now that, it was worth. The Seahawks signed him. They didn't give him anything. So there's nothing out for them other than the fact they got to have him practice for a couple of weeks. And now he's gone. So
Yeah.
We look forward. The Seahawks have an open roster spot. Who are they going to bring in?
Well, that's the positive.
That's an interesting question.
So today, for our main topic, we have anything else to talk about before we kind of move in to the main segment?
If you're listening to this in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing our fifth annual, or is it fifth or fourth? Fifth. But our fifth annual question and answer / beer show. So we're going to sit here, we're going to sample some brew, we're going to talk about that while answering silly questions from our audience. And some of them will have to do with football, I'm sure. Some of them won't. We got asked if a hot dog was a sandwich one year.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that it's a fun show. It's really fun.
It's a fun show for us. And we're going to have back-to-back fun shows. I mean, they're all fun, but that one's going to be really fun. And then we're doing the live show the next week. And so, get your questions in, some serious, some fun, some outlandish. We'll get through them. We'll get them all in there. We'll tell you who it's from so that you can be part of the show. And we'll have a great time, and we'll taste some brews. Mm-hmm. So what's your intention on the brews this year, so that I can kind of be prepared as to what level I need to bring my game?
My intention is to find some really obscure local flavors. I don't know if that's going to be, I don't know. I've got to go searching. I've got plans to go to a couple different bottle shops in the area and find some of the weirdest ones that I can find. That's my current intention. Now, when I get there, I might be like, oh, wait, look at this one, and get a bunch of porters and stuff that are more my style normally. But my intention right now is to just get weird stuff and roll with it. It'll be fun.
So, okay, I'll try to do the same. I'll do the same. Although, you know me, I'm kind of, I like one style, and I'm hard to get off of that mark. And I think I probably need to try to branch out a little bit this year and get to your level of at least trying some different things that will be a little bit more interesting to my palate than just the same stuff. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's get into the show. Seahawks, 5 offensive breakout players for 2021. We both brought in our lists. We haven't gone over, I've mentioned mine to Keith. He hasn't gone over his. He told me we've got a couple of duplicates, but that's it. Keith, go ahead. You can do them in reverse order, whatever you want, and we'll talk about them, and we'll see if we agree.
No, I'll start. I'll start with one that I think might be a little bit controversial. I think Ethan Posick, center. He was a starting center last year.
I thought about him, actually.
I think he fits the requirements of being a breakout player, because last year he was good in the beginning, and then he was hurt, and then he came back and he was below average. And he overall, over the course of the year, he wasn't that good. But he fits Shane Waldron's outside zone
so hold on,
and everything that they do better than he's fit last year. So I think it's going to be a better fit.
So you don't think that he played to a level of average? Did he play to a level of average NFL center, or was he below average?
I think he was just below average. Early in the year he was good, then he was hurt, then he came back and he wasn't good.
I think just like any player in the NFL, not any player, some players do it by themselves, but when you surround yourself with other competent players, you end up playing well. Now, Damian Lewis on the one side there, I think, helped him and hurt him in a couple different scenarios, probably, without looking really at the tape. And then on the other side,
it was
Mike Iupati, when he was in there, I think really helped Posick, just because he's a pro's pro. He knows how to do it. He's a pretty good road grader, but not a great. He used to be a pretty decent pass blocker, but he got older. And then when that blew up and Simmons was in there,
pass blocker.
Okay. But when Simmons was in there, it just really just got ugly. And some of that's on Posick. Others, he's just trying to do his job. I agree with you though. that this year is a really interesting and opportunistic year for him because 5th year in the league, all with Seattle. He's still 25 years old. He's a big guy at 6'6", 220.
320.
320. Why do you think a guy that size is more optimal in a fit where he's going to need to be more athletic than he was in the past?
Because it fits. Go look at his athletic profile. He moves well. I mean, he was a college center who was drafted by Tom Cable to be a guard or to be a tackle, because they thought, oh well, with his feet, his footwork, and his athleticism, he could play tackle. He never played tackle, and it was just terrible process. But it's Tom Cable, so you come to expect terrible from him.
It wasted his rookie year, that experiment.
Oh, absolutely. And then there were some injuries and some other things in there, and he was their, kind of swing interior lineman backup until last year, where he got an opportunity to start. Now when he played guard,
he got the Justin Britt treatment.
Yeah, when he played guard for a couple of years, he was a backup, but when he got a chance to come in and play, he played well, but then he got hurt. And so last year was his first time really stepping in as a starter during training camp, getting a chance to just focus on a position. And, he came in, won that job, played decent at times. But now he's finally coming in. He's coming back to the same job, having had a chance to play at this level, and actually get, major playing time for the first time in his career. And, his athletic profile and his ability, he is a big guy at 6'6", 320, but he moves really well. Very good laterally. Not a great straight ahead run blocker, but very good laterally. It's why he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker. But in an outside zone running scheme, you want your offensive lineman moving laterally because your goal is to make the defensive lineman move laterally instead of coming upfield, and you create holes that way. So I just think it fits his profile. This is a case of player talent and scheme really aligning well. And so I could see him just being really steady and, surprisingly, and surprise a lot of people by playing well this season. And so to me, that makes him a candidate for a breakout player.
I agree. I think he is a candidate for a breakout player. I really do. Last year, he missed 2 games because of injury, but otherwise 14 games, 14 starts. This year, he's surrounded now by Damian Lewis on the left side and Gabe Jackson over on the right side. That's a really nice trio there. If Posick stays healthy and plays every game, and you're right, I think the athletic upside there is there, and I think it elevates. I think the play elevates because of the scheme and because of the players that are around him consistently. Yeah, I could see it for sure. It's hard to be a standout center, but I think in this scheme, he's got that opportunity because I think moving out in space will give him a chance to really show rather than kind of being stuck in a box, where, what his ability really is. So,
yeah. And so you end up with a situation. He's just in a great situation. Unfortunately, there's no one behind him. I don't have a lot of faith in Kyle Fuller, and they don't really have any other options. So they need him to be good and be healthy, because the options are limited otherwise.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if we were to incur an injury to Ethan Posick, do you throw Damian Lewis back in there at center? If it's a short-term deal, if it's a long-term deal, you might have to go outside of the organization to pull somebody in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the depth there in any way. So,
well, they did get that guy, the undrafted guy from France, or not from France, but
the French name from Canada. Don't ask me to say his name. I think the guy's got potential, to play at this level. Athletically, he does. And so there's that, but he's not ready to step in and play against Aaron Donald.
Lestage.
Sure.
Yeah, nice. Montreal, Canada. I like it. He's got the right attitude at this point, and that's all you can ask. We'll see. Well, if his name comes up from Pete Carroll as we get towards training camp, we'll know that he's maybe onto something there. So, all right, my first spot that I want to talk about is my number 5 offensive breakout player, and it's not a player. I cheated. It's a group, the tight end group.
How did I know you were going to cheat, Bill?
I do occasionally cheat, and there's a pattern now.
Bring 5 players, and you show up with 8.
That is true. I just, it's one of those things. I can't escape it now. It's part of my who I am.
Brand. It's your brand.
All right, asshole. Here's my group. I'm just kidding. I'll edit that out. Tight end group: Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, Gerald Everett. I think they really have it as a group a chance to step out. I was thinking about putting Gerald Everett in just because he wasn't a Seahawk prior to this year. Team acquired him. He comes over with kind of a proven track record to produce in this offense already. And so I thought that was kind of a given. But Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson, I think those two have a chance to really kind of step out. I think Will Dissly, just based on the fact that last year he had not fully recovered from the Achilles. And it showed a little bit. I think he was a little conservative in the way that he operated. And physically, I think this year he'll be able to completely be 100% athletically and physically.
Plus, we have an offensive coordinator who actually remembers that tight ends exist for things like blocking.
Exactly. I think that this group could be a 25, 45, 45 group, meaning Colby Parkinson, who was injured before camp last year, never really got established, could have 25 receptions this year, especially as a red zone target. Mm-hmm. I think that Will Dissly, given the track record that he had prior to the injury, and last year I think he had 25 receptions. I think this year he could have 45. And that, to me, is just a little bit more utilization of the group in general, gives him that opportunity. And then Gerald Everett had 47 catches last year, I think, for 750 yards or something like that. I think that's totally doable in this offense, given the fact that so many other weapons are available that somebody's going to be left unattended or single coverage almost all the time. Gerald Everett's not going to be double covered when you've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Dwayne Eskridge running, routes all over the place. So to me, Gerald Everett is a guy in prime position to capitalize the most if the tight end group is utilized the way that we think that it will be.
Well, I mean, one of the things you have to consider is that the Seahawks do not have Jared Goff at quarterback. And so therefore, every offensive weapon has a chance to do significantly better than they would.
Well, I have a question. I have a question for you, and I hate to interrupt, but Russell Wilson hasn't, on his own merits, completely taken advantage of the tight end position, either throwing over the middle, crossing routes, and so forth. Those are some of the least favorite routes that Russell Wilson has adopted as a quarterback. What leads you to believe that Shane Waldron will allow him to change that? Is it just moving the pocket?
Shane Waldron's going to allow him to do that. He's going to call more of those routes. He's going to have people in position that are open there. There'll be times when the pocket's moving, so he's got better throwing lanes into that area. And he's not going to be asked to be throwing it 45 yards downfield every time. I just think that you put everything together and you're going to have more guys open with opportunities to catch passes in the middle. And so a lot of it's scheme and a lot of it, and some of it's talent. I mean, when Jimmy Graham was the tight end, there was a lot of hand-wringing amongst the Seahawks fan base about how they just didn't utilize him and all of that. But go look at him statistically.
Yes, absolutely. He's got almost 900 yards receiving in his healthy season.
Yeah, statistically, he, did some good things in Seattle. That's Wilson using a tight end, right? Now, it didn't have the
albeit
impact.
A non-traditional tight end.
True. You think Colby Parkinson is a traditional
tight end? No. I was just going to say it would be similar in the way that they would probably use Colby Parkinson in this offense is the way that they use Jimmy Graham.
Yeah. And so, Jimmy Graham statistically had a pretty big impact, even though it was never what we expected and wanted from him. Well, it wasn't
to the level of the New Orleans Pro Bowl years.
Yeah, but it was still really productive. And so to say that he doesn't, or look at, the 4 games of healthy Will Dissly before, the 2 in the first year and the 2 in the second year before he tore his ACL. I mean, you want to talk about production? Those were some really productive games out of him. So you have there is a little bit of there is a history of him using them despite his reputation. So now you're going to put him in an offense that's going to give those players opportunities to get open, and it's going to scheme them open at times. And I think that it could work really well. And another example would have been 2 years ago, Jacob Hollister, who wasn't even on the roster for the first few weeks, and then ended up coming in and having a really big impact down the stretch. So, to say that he doesn't, I think is incorrect.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I see that. Regardless, if Hollister, played from a kind of a slot spot or on the outside more, not so much in line. As far as the routes go are concerned, is what I'm talking about. The things that are open on the inside, directly lined up, matched up with a middle linebacker, for example, or a strong side linebacker that's an over the middle type of play. I just don't see a ton of those. Now there are some. I'm just saying. I think that remains to be seen whether those open up this year. I do believe that they will. I just don't know. I mean, if they are, and that's added to the mix, I think this offense is truly going to be nearly unstoppable because unless they just drop the ball and so forth, because there's just too many things to cover and not enough defense to do it. So, all right, what do you got for your second choice?
So my second choice is Colby Parkinson, who we just talked about. I just think that given his size, given his athletic profile, he didn't do anything last year, but he was on the the PUP list for most of the year, and then got healthy, got activated, but never really got on the field. I think that this year he's got a chance to really come in and show and shine in what's essentially his rookie year, even though he was with the team last year and got all that practice time and all of that.
Yeah, I think he had 2 receptions last year.
I just think that, his size, his ability to make those catches, Wilson can just throw the ball up. The guy's 6'7", and have him go up and get it over anyone in the league. And so, third down, right? You need a reception on 3rd and 4. He's a guy to look for, in the red zone or that kind of stuff. It just becomes that huge target that get it near him, let him go get it. And I think he has a chance to have a really big impact.
All right. My 4th choice overall, and this is going to be just weird because he's already broken out 2 years in a row, and I'm making it 3. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, DK Metcalf. He broke out in 2020 with 100 receptions and 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. How do you top that? Crazy enough, I think that he tops that. He has room in his ability and his in this offense to be even more productive, I think, and better. And he just has to have a couple of tweaks, really catch the balls that are catchable. And I think there will be more catchable balls this year. I think last year, even at 100 receptions and 1,200 yards, there were a lot of uncatchable balls thrown deep to him compared to his rookie year. And so I think this year, I think there'll be, based on the fact of the tempo offense and taking things underneath, taking what the defense gives you and so forth, allows them to create more openings for those deep shots as the season progresses. And so I see him with the potential to be 120, 1500, 10 guy. And if he does that, he's going to be an all-pro and possibly a perennial all-pro. I think that's attainable for DK Metcalf. That's why he's on my list, because I do believe it even goes up another notch, and he's already premier.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I think that you're asking a lot for a guy to.
I'm finally there. Literally the first year we said, hey, let's don't ask a lot. The second year we were like, yeah, we didn't ask a lot. We're going to ask more. And this year I'm asking a lot.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at.
This year you're asking for him to be an all-pro. Talent-wise, can he do it? Yes. He drops a lot of passes though, and there's some of that out there. And
you can't tell me though he hasn't been working on that. You know, he knows that that's what the one thing that he must work on. He's been working on it. I'm guarantee you.
Yep. And I think that, there's the opportunity. My one worry as far as him being a breakout player is that there's a lot of weapons on this offense. Yeah, Wilson's going to end up throwing the ball more, but he's got more people to throw to.
I'll tell you why it might work out. Is because when you listen to Pete Carroll, you listen to Russell Wilson, you listen to Shane Waldron, you listen to Tyler Lockett, even DK Metcalf himself, talk about this offense and talk about Shane Waldron as a person, as a teacher, as a developer in this offense, what they want to do stylistically that's slightly different. I believe that this offense ends up being more efficient. It's already fairly efficient, and it has been under Russell Wilson, but it ends up being more efficient. And they convert more third downs. So that's the key for me in this entire thing. Is everyone thinks that, this offense is going to be just dynamic and stuff. What it is it's efficiency, and converting third downs is going to be the primary big difference that people notice, I think. And if those things happen, there's more opportunities. There's more opportunities to run the ball. There's more opportunities to throw the ball. Everyone wins. I think that's why Metcalf could end up having 20 more catches, is because of the increased opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm just saying, like, for the one caveat, the one worry that I would have as far as making that prediction is that, yeah, the offense is more productive, but it's more productive because Wilson's got more options. And so, spread the ball around a little bit. He doesn't maybe get to that 1,400 yards that you're predicting. But I'm not going to argue against it either, because I think he's got a really good chance of just being an absolute monster this year in this offense, where he's not going to be double teamed on every play. Or if
they're not going to try to throw him a 5-second developing 40-yard route every time.
They're not going to be forcing the ball down there and letting Wilson get killed, waiting for the route to get 45 yards.
They've specifically said that they're going to scheme him open, get him open in open space, and allow him some yards after catch opportunities. That's huge to me. To me is the most telling thing about this offense that we're going to notice that's different, is getting players the ball early and allowing them to create.
Yeah. And while we're talking about the offense, one of the things people were always like, oh, but they were a top 10 offense and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they were also in the bottom of the league in terms of 3-and-outs. And their 3-and-out percentage was huge.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. And
Pete wants, you're right. I think it was close to like 42%, something like that, 43. Yeah. Pete came out specifically last week. I think it was last week, mini camp press conference. Pete said, we want to be close to 50%. And that's really telling to me.
You're talking about third down percentage.
Third down conversion.
And but in terms of, it's not just the third down conversion, but it's the number of drives that were 3-and-out, where your offense only had the ball for a minute and a half and had to punt it back. And because even if you string together a few first downs before your drive stalls, you give your defense a chance to rest. You flip field position. There's a lot to be gained, or maybe you get yourself in a field goal range. But no, this is under Schottenheimer. This offense was a 3-and-out machine, and then mixed into all those 3-and-outs were all the big plays and the big drives and the scoring drives that were enough to get them
stop you. Let me pause you right there. Why was that? Was it because we let Russ cook early and then we tried to keep Russ cooking throughout the year, and so we threw early, and when we had incompletions on first and second down, that forced third and long?
That was through the entirety of Schottenheimer's tenure, not just last year. Last year was actually one of the better years in terms of the 3-and-out percentage of Schotten. I think it was the best year of it, and it was still terrible. And it just has to do with play calling in general. A lot of runs up the gut for 1 yard, and so you're looking at 3rd and 8, and a lot of low percentage passes, 40 yards downfield, a lot of sacks taken because they're asking Russ to throw deep, and when they don't have enough blockers or enough talented blockers to do things. Above. It was just a lot of really dumb football, and it led to a lot of 3-and-outs, and mixed in with all those 3-and-outs were some incredible throws and touchdowns and drives and whatever, because there is a lot of talent there. But scheme wise, it was never built to be one that's going to convert a lot of third downs. I mean, when the offense worked at its best, it was because Russell Wilson played hero ball on third down a lot. And
so do you think specifically that when Pete Carroll talks about more balance and running the ball more effectively and so forth, that's exactly what he's speaking to?
Yes, he is, because he wants, when he says,
so why do fans create a riot every time they hear that come out of his mouth?
Because they want to be angry. I don't know. Part of it is he says he wants to run the ball more, but that doesn't mean he wants to run the ball at a higher percentage. It means he wants to have more overall runs. But to do that, you have to convert more third downs, so you have more offensive plays. And so you can actually run the ball less often, but have more runs if you have more offensive plays overall. And that's what he wants. He wants those conversions. He wants that higher efficiency. He doesn't need 3-and-out, 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 40-yard bomb for a touchdown. He wants, a lot of sustained drives. Yes, get those big play dynamics, but stop going 3-and-out.
Well, what he wants is to be able to do it all. Yeah. Like, he wants to be able to do whatever the defense dictates. Last year, we were myopic in that all we could do is throw long.
Mm-hmm.
Really, successfully, consistently. And that went away. And when that happened, we didn't have plan B, plan C. And so, Pete's just asking for plan A, plan B, plan C. We want to do all three phases of the game consistently and really good. We want a quick tempo offense ability. We want to be able to run the ball effectively, and we want to be able to take our shots. And we want to do all three when we want to. We want to dictate terms. We don't want the defense to dictate to us.
Well, yeah, but you can only do that if you're good at all three of them.
That's right. You can have more plays, but if those plays aren't successful, it's not going to matter.
Because if you want to dictate, you have to be able to be good at stuff, so that way they can't just line up and stop the one thing that you're trying to do. And that's one of the things that's happened is when the Seahawks wanted to just power football and grind up the middle, teams stopped that. They put extra guys in the box and they came up and stopped it. When they wanted to throw it deep, they stopped that too, because they took an extra safety and pushed everyone back and took that away. And they never had that stuff in the middle. They didn't have that tempo offense, those intermediate routes, and those kind of things that would stop defenses from being able to commit to stopping the two things that Seattle wanted to do. By not having that third one, it prevented them from doing the other two efficiently. With Waldron's offense, you're going to see a lot more of that one thing that they absolutely couldn't do last year, and that's why it's going to be more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, if a defense can't game plan you to stop you in all three phases, that's when you're going to be able to do everything that you want to do. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do and what they're working on. And I'm excited for it. I mean, this is one of the more I think about this whole Shane Waldron thing and the effect it's going to have on all of our playmakers, and including Russell Wilson, I just am excited because I think it's going to work. And I can't wait to see it on the field.
It's really hard not to be optimistic about this offense.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of which, the next player that I want to throw out there would be Freddie Swain.
Yeah, he was on my short list.
He's kind of an afterthought as we talk about all the dynamic guys with the, Lockett and Eskridge and Metcalf and whatever. He's that fourth guy who's not super dynamic as an athlete, but is more of an underneath guy, a guy that runs routes well, catches the ball well, but isn't going to take the top off the defense. And you look at last year, it's funny. I went through and looked at his catches. And he didn't have that many. I don't even have the number in front of me.
I think it was 20.
Yeah, but they were all early in games. And so when they have the game plan and they've got the script and all of that, and they're following it, he was able to be a part of the flow of the game and get his catches and that kind of stuff. And as soon as they ran out of that and it became Schottenheimer just calling plays based on whatever he called plays based on, and everything was a 40-yard bomb, they went away from him because he wasn't a guy that was going to catch a 40-yard bomb. That's not who he is. He doesn't have that kind of speed. But he was a guy that, worked well in the middle of the field in those intermediate routes and was able to generate separation on those. But his route tree didn't fit the play calls. And so he never really got as much of an opportunity as we would have expected. I think that'll change this year. And I think so you're going to see him as being the one guy who doesn't take the top off the defense. He's going to be the last guy that the, of the four receivers that the opponents are going to be working on making sure they line up against and are protecting against. He's going to get matched up against a linebacker here or a safety there and going to have an opportunity to go win and make some catches. And I think we're going to see his number called more, and he's going to get, his 45 to 50 catches this year.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's significant. He's kind of the Seahawks version of Josh Reynolds in the Rams offense, a fourth wide receiver guy. Guy's an afterthought. It's never going to get double teamed at all, especially when you got Gerald Everett out there along with the two other guys. I would imagine that a guy like Freddie Swain rotates back and forth with Eskridge, at least at the beginning of the year, kind of figure out who's going to step up in that third wide receiver role. I would imagine Eskridge probably gets more opportunities, but Freddie Swain is definitely going to be that guy. He was on my list of a guy that definitely has an opportunity to make more of an impact this year. Of course, all the playmakers do in the way that we're envisioning how this thing is going to unfold for the reasons that we've already stated. And so the opportunity could be there definitely to double his production. He wasn't very involved in the first 6-7 games anyway. So most of that production came later. And I think that he does have an opportunity. It's just a matter of his rotational role in the offense. Like, where is he pegged? Is he the fourth guy out there? Is he the third? Is he the fifth? And they don't really have a fourth guy right now. Freddie Swain would be the obvious choice.
Yeah. So he is to me, he is the fourth receiver, and he just brings a different skill set than Eskridge as another option. We know what the two on the outside are. Like they're both Pro Bowlers. Eskridge brings a very similar ability to lock it as far as a route runner. But let's talk about Eskridge.
He was my number 2 on my list. I have a number 3, but let's talk about Eskridge right now because we're in that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, second round pick. To me, he's got the most upside of any rookie wide receiver in the NFL, just because he's NFL ready. He's ready. His route tree is ready. His hand usage, his physicality, getting off the line of scrimmage and creating space in this offense with Shane Waldron is a perfect match. So I think he has an opportunity to come in and have a significant impact as a rookie, which we haven't really seen out of our rookie wide receivers. A guy like Tyler Lockett and a guy like Doug Baldwin have come in and made a significant impact with like 35 to 45 receptions in a rookie year. I think Eskridge has a chance to have maybe 60 receptions this year for, it could be 700 yards because of his yards after catch ability. I don't know how many touchdowns that would include, but I think he has an opportunity to do that. Now, the question is, when he makes the roster, that won't be good enough. He needs to come in with the mentality that, can I break into the rotation? Can I get on Russell Wilson's short list for guys that he's going to look for in key situations? And can he get that primary role as a rotation guy and hold on to it once he's there? He's not going to let Freddie Swain come close. He's not going to let anybody else come close. He's the third guy, and he's going to act like it, and that right out of the gate. To me, that makes him a guy that's on a breakout player. Now, I realize after I did all this work and put him on my list that we weren't supposed to have rookies on here. But I thank you for allowing me to cheat for the second time on the show and include him so that I didn't have to go back and add somebody else. Dwayne Eskridge, though, I think is legit.
No, I would agree with you. I think he is a guy that I think is going to have a role. It's going to be impactful. I mean, he is essentially taking David Moore's spot as the third wide receiver, but he's a very different player. David Moore is a guy that belonged on the outside, worked well in a boundary, a go up and get it kind of guy that never really generated a ton of separation. Eskridge is smaller. He's faster. He's quicker. He's got a more polished route tree. He can run almost any route on anywhere where you want to line him up. And he's great after the catch. Just an absolutely different player. But he's going to have that same spot in the rotation as the third wide receiver. And I think that you're going to see him be heavily involved and get an opportunity to make a lot of catches. I just didn't have him as a breakout player because he's a rookie.
Fair enough. All right.
So I want to let's talk about one which I'm pretty sure we both have, and that would be running back Rashad Penny.
We do both have Rashad Penny.
It would be hard for him not to break out, given that his production over the first 3 years of his career has been minimal, and so any significant impact over the course of a full season would constitute a breakout. But he's healthy for the first time in a while, and he's got a role ready for him. And talent-wise,
he's penciled in.
Yeah, I mean, talent-wise, he is a fit for an outside zone scheme. He has his speed and that ability. Yeah, he's not Chris Carson in the middle. He's never going to be. But Chris Carson's not him on the outside, and is never going to be. And so it's just a really good fit as far as scheme and player.
And Penny's a great combo back. I mean, let's talk about it. He's a great combo back. Like, he can run up the middle. This dude is 232 pounds or whatever. He's not a small guy. He has the power and ability to run between the tackles. So the cool thing about that is that teams are going to need to respect that. If they choose to use him that way once in a while, they'll have to respect the fact that he could go up the middle, but he's likely to go outside. Who knows, right? And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So you hit on all 3 points that I was going to make on him. He flashed the potential before he was injured. He's already kind of penciled in as the running back number 2, and he's well suited in Shane Waldron's scheme in the running and passing game. And so, yeah, he's an obvious choice because of that potential, but it's all it is. If the consistency was there, because he was healthy, I think that we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But the fact that he's there is really just because he has been injured. He flashes. The opportunity is definitely in front of him, and if he seizes it, I think it works out really well for him. If he gets injured again, and a guy like DJ Dallas has to come in, or Collins to come in and be the number 2 guy, kind of changes the dynamic of the way that they use the running back room now. Collins would probably split time with Dallas. Dallas would be on the field more in passing downs and so forth. So the opportunity is huge for Penny. The payday is huge for Penny. Like if he comes in and performs, he could have a really nice second contract. If he gets injured again and it does like the whole CJ Prosise type thing, where all it was potential but never fulfilled, he may be out of the NFL in a couple of years. Yeah. After a couple of, short one-term minimum deal contracts, for teams in the next few years.
It would be really unfortunate. I mean, it was unfortunate for CJ Prosise because he had all that talent, but Penny's he's a different kind of back. He's bigger, he's more physical, and he had never had injury like
that's why we didn't choose Chubb
at any level, high school, college. Yeah. He'd never been hurt, and he had a tight hamstring his rookie year. Then he had
broken finger.
Yeah, and then he had the knee injury, and it was just it's just some of it's unfortunate. It's kind of weird, and it's these are all the injuries that he had. They aren't related. It's not like
that is the significant point.
He's hurt the same knee like 3 times, and it's just weak and is always going to be a liability. It's been some of these weird things and like broken fingers. Like, I mean, that's just unfortunate. But
how significant do you think his mentality is at this point? I mean, those knockdowns, they're going to knock you down as a person, knock you down as a player. To be affected that way by injury, how do you think he's going to respond?
I don't know, because there's a couple of different ways that people respond. They either recognize that other factors are keeping them down and they're fighting even harder to make their impact and whatever, because they're like, no, I'm not going to let this beat me, and so they're working harder. Or there's the people who get injured and they start to become tentative and they don't want to get hurt, and they start worrying about it. And I don't know him personally, so I can't say it, but it's when players start to have a lot of injuries, they tend to go in one of those 2 directions. Either they work harder and fight through it because they want to overcome it, or they really start to become worried about injury and start to become tentative.
Okay. So I kind of jumped in there, and you added Penny. Do you want me to do my number 1?
Do your number 1 and they'll come back to mine, because I think mine's gonna be controversial and possibly ruffle a feather or 2.
Nice. I like it. You're causing a little bit of controversy.
That's what I do.
You threatened last week to bring your own brew into Aussies and cause havoc and mayhem that way too. You're getting a little out of control, Keith.
I am going rogue over here.
Must be summer vacation.
It is.
My guy is Damian Lewis, left guard. Damian Lewis, moving from right guard to left guard. New scheme, out in space more. The ability to show the athleticism upside that he possesses that we haven't seen in the offense yet. He was an all rookie team in 2020. Can he elevate to a Pro Bowl level in 2021? I think in this offense, next to Dwayne Brown, and we talked about Posick and having Gabe Jackson over on the other side, he has the potential again to have the recognition as a left guard in this offense to elevate and to get to that level. So to me, he's definitely on the list.
Oh, he was much better than anyone would have expected last year. I mean, we knew he had talent, and as a 3rd round pick, he was going to get, basically the job was given to him, and he did nothing to lose it during training camp and lead up to games.
And he was thrown in to starting center one game, just unbelievable. And it was a rough start, like that first drive, it was rough, and after that he fell right in.
Yep. But he overall last year just shined. He was good. He was one of the most dependable offensive linemen that we had last year. Absolutely. And so it was just it was really nice to see, after all the years of disappointing draft picks and stuff on the offensive line, to have one that come in and really play well. And now having an off season to go through and watch film and learn and all of that, and prepare his body in a different way, and then to come out this year, he's got a chance to be really good. and it's going to be fun to watch.
Okay. Let's start the controversy.
My breakout player, my number one breakout player, Russell Wilson.
What? You didn't share that with me.
I know. I didn't share it with you on purpose.
Wow.
Here's a guy who's already played at a Pro Bowl level
How
every
can
year.
You be a breakout player at his level, top 4 quarterback in the NFL.
Because you can go be the MVP. You can go be a guy that throws for, 40 touchdowns and 8 interceptions and win an MVP. And I see Wilson with the talent around him, an offensive line that isn't one of the worst in the NFL for the first time since his rookie year.
So he would have to outdo 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 4,200 yards, and 105 quarterback rating to elevate.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. And that's why I think that it's controversial to say, because how do you go beyond that?
Keith, I kid you not, he was either going to be my number one or he was off the list. And I put him off the list just because I thought it was absurd.
You look at those numbers and it seems absurd. How do you do significantly better than that? You complete a higher percentage on third down. Therefore, you get more opportunities.
You win more games. I mean, they won 12 games.
Yeah, but they won 12 games, and down the stretch, they won a lot of games because the defense was great.
And the other teams they faced sucked.
Yeah. Whereas this year, he's gonna have a chance to win a lot of games and be the catalyst and the reason why they're winning games. And 40 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Yeah, I think it could be 45 and 8. The 4,200 yards, I think 5,000 is not out of the question in this offense. And with those numbers, we're talking an MVP season for Russell Wilson.
And a quarterback rating over 110.
Yeah. And
winning big games, winning it like we used to do. I mean, we used to win the big games. You go in and say, yeah, we need to go beat the 49ers. And I feel pretty damn good about it. And then go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rams and any other big game, that we have on the horizon. Yeah. I mean, Keith, I agree. It's the same reasoning that I put DK Metcalf on my list, because these players are already premier guys, and there's still room. There's an interesting thing about Russell Wilson in that, and this may be borne out and maybe not, but you realize how important it is to have an offensive coordinator that's completely in sync with your abilities and gives you the best opportunity to be successful. And I think Russell Wilson is so good that he's overcome the shortcomings of his offensive coordinators to be where he's at today. But if he had an offensive coordinator that was completely in sync with his abilities, then he could go to another level we haven't seen yet. And is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And that really is what I'm talking about, is the talent around him is better. But more importantly, the scheme around him is better. Not just better overall, which
but we just don't know
better,
yet.
But it's a better fit to his ability. Are you sure we don't know?
Well, I mean, we've seen the Rams, but it's been Jared Goff. We've seen Russell Wilson in what he can do with the long ball. Now we need to marry those things up and have Russell Wilson surpass Goff in not only the short game and the game management ability, but also be able to take the shots, which Goff could never do. So by not being able to do that, you limited that entire offense to being a one-dimensional offense.
And now you don't have those limitations.
I know. And that's why we're talking about everybody else in such these grand scheme ideas about elevating their games and so forth. Russell Wilson is kind of an afterthought. I'm really glad you mentioned him, actually, because he's the key cog to this entire thing.
Russell Wilson should never be an afterthought.
I know. It's crazy. It's like one of those deals where when you talk about like these other guys, the pundits out there with the season predictions and predicting that the Seahawks are going to be fourth in the division and all that kind of stuff, completely throw out the door the idea that Russell Wilson has a floor. That he's proven for 8-9 years now that his floor is 9 wins. Yeah. Like that's the floor with the crappiest team that you can give him, and the upside is just off the charts.
Well, and that's what he had that year that all the coaching staff got fired and everything. I mean that talent wise, that team wasn't good, and they got 9 wins. They didn't make the playoffs, but they did get to 9 wins. Now, this is the best collection of talent around Wilson that he's had probably since his rookie year. The offensive line, I think I said the offensive line was better than his every year but his rookie year, but 2013 was pretty dang good too.
But the offensive line this year could be great, just based on just the help with the scheme and the up tempo and not taking so much time to allow routes to develop that put him in sack situations and so forth.
Yeah, and
if you got the sacks down from 48 or whatever to 38, just reduction by 10 sacks, less than a quarter of them, he could be. I mean, that's significant.
It is, because that's that many more drives that continue that aren't killed by those sacks. Because it's not just, I mean, there were a lot of sacks on third down last year, but there were a lot of sacks on first down that caused Schottenheimer to give up on the drive and, okay, let's run it up the middle twice and punt. And I don't see that happening either, just because the offensive coordinator isn't completely incompetent. And so even if he does take a sack on first down, they're not going to just give up on that possession. So there's just so much there's so much about this offense that is going to be dynamic and efficient and great, that I think that this could be the best offense that we've seen in Seattle. Period.
That's a big statement, but it's backed up by
the only thing
not reality yet, but it's backed up by a significant idea about being correct.
Of course, the 2005 offense would makes that statement I made really difficult to beat, because that 2005 offense was legit. That was the 29 touchdown by Sean Alexander year, and all the yards and stuff that Matt Hasselbeck put together, and that was just an incredible offense, based on what then was a good scheme. Leagues evolved, and you couldn't run that scheme anymore. But I think that what the NFL has evolved to is to what Shane Waldron brought to Seattle, and
we just happen to have the personnel to execute it.
Yeah,
starting with Russell Wilson as the quarterback. I mean, that's the huge difference, and they may see a similar elevation in Los Angeles this year with Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford is not Russell Wilson, but he's no slouch as far as being able to execute throws and so forth. We'll see how the offense protects for him and so forth. That seems to be really important for him.
He's a significant upgrade to Jared Goff.
Yes,
and
he is.
I think people look at Stafford and they forget that he played in Detroit, and that had a lot to do with wins and losses.
No, absolutely.
And
but
so
it's hard to envision Stafford in this offense.
Yeah, I just look at it and I go, people have a more negative view of Stafford than I think is deserved, and a lot of it has to do with wins and losses and him playing in Detroit.
And he was asked to just do so much by himself.
Yeah, it was an awful team with not great talent around him most of the time, or he had one good receiver but no offensive line or whatever. Year to year. Now he's got a good system on a good team, with a lot of talent. I think that offense in LA, I was going to say St. Louis, in LA is going to take off quite a bit now that they've got a competent quarterback.
as well Seattle's offense. And it wasn't bad with Schottenheimer, but like I said, you overcome a lot when you have a great quarterback. And when you have synchronization between your quarterback and your play caller, this thing could be just dynamic. I mean, really just take off and be other level type great. Number one offense in the NFL is certainly not a subject that anybody should be shy from talking about.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you look at, if you're looking for an example on all of this, might be the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, because with McCarthy's offense and their scheme and just how basic and vanilla it had become, Rodgers' stats they never lived up to his reputation for like 3 or 4 years in a row. He was kind of a,
stale. Yeah.
He was just above average. He was not that great player. I mean, there was a lot of talk about perhaps he was, starting to show his age and was washed and all of that. And you bring in, Matt Rule and a new offense and one that actually fit his talents a little better. And boom, he has an MVP season at 38. And, granted, there's a lot of drama and stuff going on there now. And so that's going to be a thing. But just looking at the play on the field and what scheme to quarterback matching does, I think that's a great example of just not using your your quarterback correctly for his talents versus doing so. And yeah, there's a little bit of talent around him that came and went and stuff during those years, but you don't go from being, barely above average quarterback to being MVP just because you get a single wide receiver. It had a lot to do with the scheme and what they were asking him to do and how they were putting him in a position to be successful. So yeah,
nice.
They're going to go put Russell Wilson in a scheme that will put him in a situation to be successful more so than he's ever had as a pro.
Yeah, let's look forward to that because that's amazing. Did you have anybody that barely missed? Like, for example, I have Gabe Jackson and DJ Dallas on my list, but they were just, a cut below. Gabe Jackson only because I just felt like, he's a newcomer onto the team and so forth. He's already been really established and we kind of know what we're going to get. DJ Dallas just missed for me because I just think the opportunities this year will just be limited barring an injury. Mm-hmm. And if people are injured and he gets thrown into the mix, then he could have a significant contribution, I think. But
I think his contribution is still a running back 2 as a ceiling this year. He's not going to be the guy that's going to truly ever step in and have starters minutes because of the player that I thought about including in not, which would have been Alex Collins, who. Because wow. With Carson is not going to make it through a 16-game season without getting some injury. It's happened every year, and a lot of that's his running style. I mean, he just punishes people.
Most games he's played is 14.
Yeah, he just absolutely punishes people who try to tackle him. But eventually, that leads to him getting banged up here and there, and so it's why you need to have someone to step up behind him, and you've got Penny there, but. Penny's also got an injury history. And even if Penny does stay healthy and it takes over as that running back 1, you're going to need someone to come in and to take the running back 2 snaps. And that'll be Collins.
Yeah.
And, Collins has had one really good year in the NFL when he was in Baltimore. And, went there, was kind of an afterthought, barely made the roster. But because of injuries, got a chance to start and looked really, really good. And then the following year got hurt and, found his way out of that job. But the talent is there. We know it's there. We've seen the track record of ability. He never really got a chance in Seattle because of some fumble problems, but he seems to have fixed that during his time in Baltimore. I just think he's got a chance to come in. He'll get an opportunity at some point because of injury, because it's the NFL and running backs get hurt, and he'll be the next man up. And I think he's poised to take advantage of it, and a really good fit schematically for an outside zone running scheme, which is what they ran in Baltimore when he excelled. So yeah, I just think it's a good fit and a good opportunity. Unfortunately, he's waiting for an injury to get his chance to actually show that he's ready for it.
Is there anybody that we've talked about that has a chance to not be on the roster? Like, is there a chance that a guy like Collins gets cut because they only decide to keep 4 running backs plus Nick Bellore?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think they
would they keep Homer over Collins?
I don't think so. I think they would. For them, it's a choice between Dallas and Homer, and Dallas is the better player with more team control and all of that. So Homer would leave, and they would keep Collins because they know their top 2 guys are injured, and they want a guy that can run between the tackles and be that, not just a pass catcher, which is what Homer is. And so I think he'll make the roster. The part of this that actually would be interesting is Penny, because there's rumors that the Steelers, who are looking for some help at running back, are looking out at players who are in the last year of their contract, or especially a rookie contract, that they could get for maybe less than you would normally think, and have some depth at a position where they're really hurting and need help. Penny's a good fit for them as far as that. And so there's interest. There's rumors that they are interested and are seeing if maybe they can pry him away from Seattle. That might not happen until training camp and that kind of stuff. The Seahawks will need to see Collins or Dallas or someone else ready to take his spot before they'd pull the trigger on that. But it's a possibility that he ends up on another roster by the time opening day rolls around.
It's weird that they passed on Connor, their own player, in free agency, not to have him back. He left and went to Arizona, to then, a couple months later, give up a draft compensation for Rashad Penny, who hasn't successfully, completed 8 games in a season or whatever. So that'll be interesting.
It is. It's basically one of those things when you play the odds, and you're trying to work the system and the economy of it, and you miss.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen that in Seattle a few times.
We've seen that in Seattle quite a few times, but in this particular season, John Schneider did that, especially on the defensive line with Carlos Dunlap, and it worked, and they played it correctly.
Yes.
Whereas it appears that the Steelers tried to play the same kind of game with Connor, and it failed. They ended up misreading the market, and now they're in a situation where they may have to give up a 4th or a 5th round pick for a guy like Penny.
Why didn't they? Did they address it in the draft? I can't remember.
I don't believe they did.
Yeah, see, that's weird.
But again, it's you play the odds. You're like, okay, we'll let him walk and we'll fix it in the draft. But then the draft falls in a way that you didn't expect, and none of the guys that you liked were ever there when you were picking. So, it's kind of the situation that they're in. So,
I guess I wouldn't mind trading him, but it's really hard to envision anything over a 5th round pick for Penny, if that, and that would be conditional. I would believe. Obviously, they elected not to do a 5th year option on Penny this year, and rightly so. But nonetheless, I would rather have him here than give up that draft pick because of the scheme. And if he is healthy, this thing ends up being a pretty nice 1-2 combo. And I hate to give away that potential, but in order to get, you have to give. And maybe Seattle feels like they're in that position where a guy like Alex Collins makes them feel better about giving up something to get something back. Now, Penny might be just too expensive for Seattle to think that they could give it away. So we'll see.
But it also might be a situation where what they see is what we were talking about earlier with his injury, is maybe they're seeing him, being a little tentative and not wanting the contact that he used to. And they're like, maybe he's not a good fit here in Seattle anymore. And so let's go ahead and get something for him while we can.
Well, he certainly doesn't run in the way that traditionally Pete Carroll wants the running backs to run.
True, but he didn't in college. So, I mean, he's never been Marshawn Lynch or Chris Carson in terms of wanting contact and wanting to just run people over. He's a guy that is big and can fight through contact, but wants to run away from people and just use his speed on the outside and get, to the corner.
He's Sean Alexander. I mean, really, he's kind of a Sean Alexander player that just hasn't had the injury history that would help him show that out on the field. And there's nothing wrong with Sean Alexander's style if you're doing it as well as Sean Alexander, so it's tough for him. Whichever outcome, I wish him the best.
Yeah. So to me, looking at the list, I mean, he was the one guy that I saw as a potential, trade asset, but everyone else we talked about, I think is pretty set.
To me, there wasn't a ton of offensive options for this conversation. I think we talked about everybody that I think deserved to be talked about. I think next week we're going to have to
more fun.
We're going to have to actually get our eraser out and take guys. There's probably going to be a list of 10 guys, I swear. And we're going to have to pare that down.
5, Bill. The rule is
7. Which means 8. I know, I'm bad. I cheat.
You always
I'm
do.
Normally not a cheater in real life, just on this show.
But on this show, every time we come up with a rule of, you can only bring 5 players, you bring 8. Or you do what you did this weekend. I'm going to bring an entire position group.
Does it significantly hurt or help the show?
I'm just giving you a hard time because I can.
I know, I am. I admit it. I have a problem. That's one of the first steps of correcting the problem, is admitting that you have one.
Yes, but you also have to want to correct the problem. And you're like, it's more fun this way. So no, I give you a hard time, but it makes for great content. So your controversial pick didn't end up being as controversial as you thought it would be. And not with
it's hard to disagree with you. It just is.
Well, that's just because of who I am.
That's true. Pete. You are marvelous.
No,
you are on the top of your game every week in, week out.
I think it's controversial because I think people are going to look at his stat line for last year, and the fact that he was on an MVP trajectory for the first 6 or 7 games,
right?
And they're going to be like,
but that means there's 6 or 7 games that he's got an opportunity to solidify the MVP choice.
And so people are going to look and they're like, you're really expecting him to go a big jump above that, and that they're going to say that's unreasonable. But it's the same logic that you had for DK Metcalf. I mean, the guy was already a Pro Bowler, set team records and all that kind of stuff, and you're expecting a significant jump.
Yeah, I'm expecting him to be go from a top 10 wide receiver, which I think he is. He's right in that pocket. From 8 to 12. He's right there. And I'm asking him to go to top 4. And I think that he's on the cusp. And if he has a breakout season, he could get there. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Next week's conversation, we're going to do the defense. Like Keith said, that's going to be a completely different situation because the defense is just loaded with opportunity to
there's
rise up.
A lot of guys and a lot of like you said, opportunity, a lot of talent too. So those players with opportunity, it's not just that they're getting playing time, it's that they're getting playing time and they've got the talent to really be impactful.
Yes,
it's going to be a fun show to talk about.
So reminder, Aussies, downtown Seattle, July 19th, live in-person show. If you can't make it, live out of the area, that's fine. We're going to live stream it on 3 separate platforms. I think it's Facebook, YouTube, I think Twitch, I believe. There might be one more. And or We're going to record the whole thing as well, both on video and for the audio. So it's going to be put out as a podcast as well as a YouTube video for both the Emerald City Sportscast as well as the Seahawks Playbook podcast. We're going to do it shared. So it's all going to be the same content on both platforms. And so that's a great pairing and cross-platform opportunity that we're having with Dan. He's just great and a terrific person to work with. And so we're looking forward to that for sure. Giveaways, Seahawks preseason tickets, a pair, are going up for grabs, as well as 5 gift cards to Fanatics worth $50 each. So they're not just cheap. You can significantly add to a nice jersey purchase or a couple hats or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, something like that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing it during happy hour. There's going to be food and drink specials in person. So it's going to be a crowd. The first crowd that I'll be a part of, other than a few spring training games, but in a nice enclosed setting since all of this pandemic stuff started. So it's a good time to get out and really kind of re-energize your fandom for the team, talking about training camp stuff and special guests, everything else. So anything else, Keith?
No, I would just say if you're in the local area, it's happy hour. Come down and join us. It'll be a lot of fun.
We've given you enough time to plan. So take the half a day off or whatever it is. Come down a little early. Like, we start recording at 3, but if you show up a little early, you'll get a chance to talk to us, interact a little bit, ask some questions. So it'll be great. So until next time, we're going to find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. SeahawksPlaybook.com is our website. It's been completely redesigned out there. It has all of our shows, both podcasts and YouTube, as well as some written content on there at this point. And it's a great resource for you to go out. And there's all sorts of feeds on there as well, NFL feeds. You can basically kind of use it as a one-stop shop now for all of your Seahawk and NFL news. And that's it. We'll be back next week, same time. So until then, go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.